Good afternoon to you all, and thank you for joining us. My name is Dr. Jim Wickman, and I'm the Director of Catholic Life in Campus Ministry here at Georgetown University. It is my pleasure, on behalf of Campus Ministry, my colleagues on the Campus Ministry staff with us today, and the co-sponsors of this afternoon's event, to welcome you to our presentation. I want to express my thanks to our co-sponsors for this event, including the Dean's Office of the School of Foreign Studies, the Film and Media Studies program of Georgetown College, and the Office of Mission and Ministry. I'm grateful to these campus partners who worked with us to bring this film and this conversation forward at this time. All are welcome. We are honored to begin our conversation today with Ambassador Colleen Bell, who currently serves as the Executive Director of the California Film Commission, having been appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom in 2019. Ambassador Bell is the former ambassador to Hungary under the Obama administration from 2017 to 2019. We're so pleased to have you join us to introduce our film and filmmaker, Ambassador Bell.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you this afternoon. Thank you all for joining us here for what I know will be an engaging, informative, and lively conversation with who I believe is one of the most impactful documentary filmmakers of our time, Evgeny Affinevsky, director of Francesco, the first documentary ever made not just on a pope, but with a pope. The Holy Father, Pope Francis, Evgeny was born to a Jewish family in the former Soviet Union. As a teenager, Evgeny immigrated to Israel and then to the United States as an adult. His previous documentaries have tackled major geopolitical conflicts. Winter on Fire, which earned him an Oscar nomination, chronicled Euromaidan, a wave of anti-Russian pro-democracy protests in Ukraine, and Cries from Syria, which covered the Syrian civil war. Winter on Fire over the past few years has gone viral. Many of you may know this because you've read about it, as pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong and Venezuela have found inspiration in Evgeny's film. With Francesco, he turns to Pope Francis, who has used his position to bring attention to such crises, and in so doing has become an icon far beyond the Catholic world. Speaking out on climate change, the refugee migration crisis, the genocide of the Rohingya, other human rights atrocities, and as an advocate for victims of sexual abuse in the church. When Evgeny finished his last film, Cries from Syria, I remember well sitting with him over lunch. And when he told me, I think I'm going to do my next film. It will be a film on Pope Francis. Because humanity, he said, is failing these days, and Pope Francis is trying to point us all in the right direction. Evgeny said to me that day, Francis is a leader who has a willingness to listen, recognize other people's pain, and take steps to help. He sees Francis as someone who does not put labels on someone, but embraces all as a brother and a sister, a virtue that serves to unite in what is, at times, a very divided world. I am so pleased to be able to introduce my friend Evgeny to you this afternoon. He is one of the most tenacious, most courageous, most impact-driven people I have ever met, and I have met many people in my life. He is driven to the core with the sole purpose to improve the human condition and shed light on suffering and to hold those accountable for that suffering and to reevaluate how we are living today and inspire leaders and citizens to make necessary changes for the future. Evgeny is a very special personal friend and spends a lot of time with me and my family, including Georgetown Junior Charlotte Bell, who was able to screen this movie when Evgeny screened it for us before the pandemic hit. There was no place in the movie for the pandemic because the pandemic had not hit. So we saw it before. And then we all said to Evgeny, you're going to have to go back to the editing room here. with this global crisis. And of course, he knew that he needed to do that, and he did. So I'm so pleased to be here. Father Schenden's going to be conducting the interview with Evgeny, and so I will turn it over to them.
Ambassador Bell, thank you. And thank you for joining us. Evgeny, thank you for joining us. This is great to have you. Again, as we were talking before we came on, the film is it's incredibly powerful, very moving. And as I said to you at the beginning, I really step away from it with a real, much needed newfound sense of hope. Just to go back and to elaborate a little bit on what Ambassador Bell was saying, you've had a kind of prolific past 5 years between the three films. So you went from Winter on Fire, Cries for Syria, and now Francesco. Maybe to expand upon the lunch that you and Ambassador Bell had when you were talking about the idea, when roughly did you start thinking about making a film about Pope Francis? And what was behind that desire to make a film specifically about Pope Francis?
First of all, I want to thank Colleen for her words, because I'm still a little bit in tears, because she's a dear friend. She's like my sister, and she went through all this journey with me. And for me, it's important. She was a great supporter. She'd been with me in my emotional moments, difficult moments, because it's not was easy journey. So Colleen, thank you. Thank you for all your words. In 2017, when we launched Cries from Syria, which Ambassador Colleen Bell was a big supporter as well. She did a screening, she was talking about this. So we had a conversation, and we were talking about what will be next for me. And Colleen also knew my problem that I suffered with post-traumatic syndrome coming out of Syria. And we were also discussing how many disasters we as humans created in this world, and how we do miss in leadership. We're talking about 2017, when we truly were already missing a true leadership on a big scale for this world. And looking for hope, looking for humanity, and seeing what my previous movies able to deliver as something that can give hope to the people or inspire them, I realized that I need to use the same storytelling, but also to bring ability to tell much more stories from across the globe. Not just focus on one story like Syria or Ukraine, but to do something on a bigger scale, to tell much more bigger disasters that we as humans created, and to find also hope, love, humanity. I was looking for the same things, hope, love, humanity for myself. And I guess that's why I decided to turn to Pope Francis, who was embracing interfaith dialogue, which I observed in Maidan, who was embracing unity in a world that we all need to be united, who was embracing equality, who was embracing refugees and migrants and trying to make us to open hearts towards them, who was caring about climate change and many other issues that I found really fascinating. And I decided to go and try to capture these disasters, and through him bring these stories, to do exactly what he's doing, to shed the light, to bring the spotlight on these elements that we as humans created, and in the same time to try through him to allow us to understand, hey, we are at red line. And then also to understand, but we still can bring a change. And change we need to make as soon as possible, because we are at the catastrophe of the world, of today's world. And I think pandemic, like Colleen mentioned, helped me to reshape the entire vision of the movie. Because for me, pandemic was this red line. Hey, we need to reevaluate what we've done before. Leave a lot of our baggage there behind us. And then with completely different set of minds, with really good deeds, with open heart, with love, go into the future, protecting our lives, protecting the environment, and being more humble and human. And I think that's why I turned my kind of focus towards Pope Francis, who is for me, He's just a friend and he's a father. And he is, for me, in my mind, in my heart, in my soul, he's the father to all of us, kids from all over the world, believers and not believers. He's trying to unite us and say, hey, we are today need to be in love with each other. We need to embrace each other because we spread across the globe, but we're living in one home, Earth, and we need to care about this home. And we need to trust each other. We need to love each other. We need to stop all these conflicts. And that's how I see him. That's why I turn to him as the humble human being, role model, leader, and not just as the head of the Catholic Church.
You said so much great stuff. And when you said he's not just the head of the Catholic Church, but he's this humble leader, which is very much in keeping with kind of servant leadership that we see in the Gospels and from Jesus himself. Take it just one more technical question, and I want to come back to something you just said there about how many disasters we as humans have created, and I'll come to especially the pandemic and COVID in a moment. But just one more technical question. So you have this great desire, and I so appreciate, hope, love, humanity. And here is this individual, Jorge Bergoglio, Pope Francis, who embodies this. How do you go about contacting the Holy Father to say, hey, I would like to make a film about you and get your cooperation on this? I don't have that kind of access. I'm just curious how that plays out. I'm curious, well, certainly with your previous films, but Cries for Syria, was he aware of Cries for Syria? And did that have something in terms of making that connection with him?
First of all, Jorge Maria Bergoglio, since 1978, not watching TV. Even his passion to the football and his love to San Lorenzo team, he is still not watching even their games. So he getting the scores through the secretaries and Swiss guards. So yes, I contacted him, and I'm taking my hat in front of the Jesuits, one of them in front of me. Jorge Maria Bergoglio or Pope Francis said to me, Evgeny, I'm a Jesuit. I'd rather go to the corners of the world to help people than I will be in front of the camera. I'm not an actor. I don't want to be in the movie. So that's how the beginning started. And also Vatican not promised me anything. Vatican embraced the idea, knowing my track record, but they said, start, and then we will see again. And I did my own ways to connect to him, talk to him, learn about him, being close to his family, to his great friends, and then slowly establish this relationship with him, build this trust, and then at least showing him that it's not a movie about him. It's not another autobiographical story of another human being. I showed to him that this movie is call for action. It's advocacy, it's activism, and it's action. It's a call for action for us to learn something from him, from his amazing gestures that are coming from Jesus, from gospel. And I think that's what was important. And he's not a main character. We as humans who are sinners are the main characters. And he is somebody who providing his wisdom, who teaching us to do things on a more proper way as the human, not even as the head of Catholic Church, as the human to human. And he agreed to help to summarize these things. That's how this movie happens.
That's fantastic. And this is human. We often talk here at Georgetown about our Jesuit values, our Catholic values. And you mentioned the interfaith facet of Pope Francis. These values that we hold very near and dear, care for the whole person, all of these aren't just Jesuit or Catholic values, but they are, as you're pointing out, Evgeny, these are universal human values. And something that a world leader like Pope Francis embodies. I also appreciate what you said there is this isn't just a nice documentary to see the good things that a Pope does, but it's a clarion call to all of us to go and do likewise, to bring that love, to bring that compassion, to bring that sense of forgiveness and mercy, a word that Pope Francis loves, to bring that out to the greater world. A couple of, as I stand from this perspective, there are certain just kind of reoccurring images throughout the film that really, and you talk about all these really, really key issues that Pope Francis deals with, from the environment to displaced people to things like the sexual abuse crisis. But what you do so powerfully in the film, Evgeny, is you put faces to all of this. Let me just continue. You said a couple moments ago, you talked about kids from all over the world. As I sit here right now talking to you all, one thing that over the course of the entire film that sticks with me, and I was talking at table at lunch with a couple of my Jesuit brothers, and we were talking about the film, and they said the very same thing. What brought tears was looking into the faces of these children. Would you talk a little bit? Was that a really intentional idea as you were creating this film, to make these faces such an important part of it? Because that really stands out in giving these faces, especially these children's faces, to this issue of migration and displacement.
I think it's important to me because I'm migrant myself, and like Colleen mentioned, I immigrated twice. For me, it was important because when you're talking about Pope Francis, he believes in the future for the kids. And for me and for him, we both want to bring the same message. When refugees or migrants, they live in their homes, they want the future for their kids. They live in usually the war-torn countries, where the places like in Africa, in Syria, where there is no chance for these kids to sustain a life. It means there is no future. And when the parents sending the kids out, or when they trying to cross the oceans, the seas, and sometimes they paying high price. Alan Kurdi in my Syrian movie, I started my Syrian previous movie with the image of Alan Kurdi, 3-year-old child who's paid the price by his life, trying to cross the sea with his parents to find a better future, to sustain in the future. And I think for me, these happy faces of the kids, these faces of Holy Father, that he been able to do something, some little gesture. To when we're talking about pro-life, I guess that's more connected to pro-life, because that's a true measurement of pro-life. He's trying to protect life as the pastor and as the priest. In my conversations with him, we had various conversations. We always get into this point. It's a pro-life. People sometimes thinking that pro-life is very limited in terms of what it means. No, pro-life, it means to save life of the refugee or migrant, or allow them to integrate into society, welcome them into this society, allow them to be alive. That's pro-life. When we're talking about climate change, we're trying to preserve what is around us, so it will not cause us any kind of harmful health issues. That's pro-life. And I think in a bigger scale, refugee and migration crisis, when we're not caring about this, we are showing the back to pro-life issue. When we're talking about our American border and family separation, that's not pro-life. That is not pro-life. Caring about these people, that's pro-life. Caring that the families will be together, caring about this future generation, educating them, implementing them into society, that's pro-life. And I think that's why for him it's important, and for me. And that's why I try to focus on the kids. I think in the last two movies, the focus been on the kids. In my Syrian movie, I focused on the kids, allowing these innocent voices to be very present in my Syrian movie, because it's innocence, it's the future. And it's in the same time, truer kind of element of the society. They not have filters. They saying what they see, what they feel. And the same thing here. You're not making them actors, you're making them true testament to his actions. Their expressions on their faces, their happiness, that's the true testament to his gestures as the human being that he bringing into their lives. That's why, for me, it was really important.
Well, and and just some of those scenes where, you have Pope Francis with the children, and the pictures of them bringing the various pictures to him of all sorts of, and a word that comes up throughout the film, but that you see it on some of the signs that the children are holding, pace, peace. There's this notion of peace running through it all, but also some very, very heartbreaking images that the children produce as well. Isn't there one of the overturned, I'm thinking of Lampedusa, of a child did a picture of an overturned boat in the film. Just those heartbreaking moments. But again, it's back to this notion of, and I really appreciate what you're saying here in terms of, these are all life issues, and putting these human faces to it. You brought up a moment ago, the Mexico and the wall. That was something else that struck me throughout the course of the film. You showed the Pope praying at 4 different walls, I think. I think it's the Western Wall, the wall in Palestine, the American-Mexico border, and then in Auschwitz. Was that a very, that is incredibly striking. Was that intentional is that you intended as well?
Yes.
It's
for Pope Francis, bridges and building bridges is the essential element of his papacy, and very important for him as the human being. Bridges, human bridges, cultural bridges, spiritual bridges. I think that's a really important element of his papacy. And I think that's why I intentionally showed it. And I intentionally made him talk about that. I intentionally made Father Michael, who is the head of the Franciscan order, talk about this. I specifically pointed to these things, how important it is to Holy Father, and at the same time, how important it is to us to realize that building walls, it's a not right choice, specifically for 21st century. We need to build these bridges between us, between humans. In our humanity, that's where we need to build the bridges, because that's important element for him. Walls not will save us. Only bridges, understanding, communication is the essential element that belongs to us, to humans. And that's why when I was talking that he is resembling for me a father who taking kids from all the places across the big globe, bringing them back home and saying, hey, you guys are all brothers. It doesn't matter what color of skin you have or what religious beliefs you have, or even not believers. You all brothers. Please, starts to love and respect each other. Starts to live in peace all together. Let's be all big family, caring about our common home, not trashing it, caring. And I think that's my vision towards Pope Francis in these days and through this movie. And that's why, kids, specifically children, is essential element to this.
Right. Thank you for that. To go back, and you just mentioned there, looking at, and you've said it a few times here, looking at Pope Francis as a father figure. And I appreciate that image because often, with so much, and you talked about, the hope, the love, the humanity, all of this. At times, fathers can also be, they can be strong, they can be forceful, and you don't shy away from that when you in your portrayal of the Holy Father in this film. There's a number of moments where you show him, well, when the sexual abuse crisis, when he's first asked about Chile, and he gets rather strong when he's asked about it at the very beginning. We see the transformation in his own thinking and his humility. But there's also, I found, a very incredible moment, and it's once again comes to that notion of, I think, solidarity with so many people, is when he's in Bangladesh and he's receiving, it's kind of he's on a stage receiving some of the displaced folks, and some of the handlers there want to rush them along. And he says twice very strongly, respect. And you see that kind of fuerte, that forceful side of this man. You were hoping to reveal that as well? I mean,
listen, from the beginning, he told me, Evgeny, feel free to tackle any subject. And what I love about him, he's not afraid of critiques. He's not afraid of truth. He is a person who learns every day something new. He's not afraid to admit his mistakes. He's not afraid to say, I'm sorry. Because in terms of Chile, it's not only that he asked forgiveness in front of Juan Carlos Cruz. He admitted his mistake when he sent a letter to the Bishops' Conference of Chile, and he's also in Ireland in 2019 in Ireland. He literally he asked for forgiveness. It was in a park, and he asked for forgiveness in front of the entire world. So I think what is important is to show his personality. The person who can admit his mistakes, who not shy from that, because not many leaders are able to do that. In a lot of times, we see leadership who is like, you know what, I'm not responsible for that. And I don't want to point fingers, but you know what, he is not afraid even to ask sorry. You just mentioned Rohingyas. He asked for forgiveness on behalf of the perpetrators, which is incredible.
Right.
That's probably what Jesus will do. And he is not shy from these things. He's trying to comfort people. When people sometimes, sorry that I'm jumping through things, but sometimes people asking me about my personal interaction with this person. And I'm always saying, you know what? He's making you so comfortable. You're not realizing that you are in front of the leader of the world. You're feeling so comfortable because he's like your brother. He's like your friend. He's like your father. And that's the level of comfort that Pope Francis makes when you are next to him. I think when I will finish, I would love Colleen Bell to comment on that, because she experienced these moments with him when we all were in Vatican. But I'm going back to the conversation. He is allowing you to tell the truth. And that's what I try to be, because I've been always objective in my movies. Being born in former Soviet Union in Russia, I did a movie about incredible heroism of the Ukrainian people, Ukrainian story. And Russia is not exactly aligning with Ukraine. They are enemies because of the conflict on Donbass and Donetsk, because of the situation with Crimea. So I still did this story, and I've been objective, telling this beautiful story to the world. I was raised in Israel. I served Israeli military, and I still went to Lebanon, Syria, and I told the story of the innocence that I brought from there. So I always was trying to be objective, and I am so thankful for Holy Father allowing me to be objective in my storytelling. And that was incredible, that for the first time, Vatican, him, the Dicastery of Communications, everybody were allowing me to be artist, to have my freedom of artist, telling the true story of Jorge Maria Bergoglio, whom we see as fascinating leader and the amazing human being for these days. Colleen, to you, share your story about Pope Francis, about his amazing, amazing characteristics, about him as the human being.
Wow. Well, first off, I do see you as an artist and an incredible storyteller. And I think you said at one point that your films are like a sculpture that you leave behind for the centuries. And I truly believe that you do that, and you are an artist. Yes, so I had the very unique opportunity to travel with Evgeny to Rome in October and meet Pope Francis. And so I was, it was a private audience, and so I am a Catholic. And so I wore a very traditional, proper Black ensemble with the mandala and everything. And we just walked in there. And, of course, we were all a bit nervous. Evgeny was not at all nervous at all. But so we're standing waiting in the room, in this beautiful room. And my first vision of the Pope in person was he was walking through the door with this huge birthday cake with a flaming torch coming out of it. And the torch was lit and flaming, and he's walking through the door. So that put everyone at ease. It happened to be Evgeny's birthday on that day. So I really sensed the joy that the Holy Father had in surprising Evgeny with this birthday cake. I mean, it was as if he chose the cake and he made sure that there was a torch on top and make sure it was lit. It was just absolutely fantastic. But then he came in and had just this warm, genuine conversations with Juan Carlos Cruz, who was in the movie, and Evgeny and myself, and just a couple other friends who were there. But it was his warmth and graciousness is palpable. It's just there's a certain energy about him that is like nothing I had really ever experienced before. It's just this relaxed, calm, giving, beautiful, kind of joyous nature. And I was so honored to have the opportunity to be there and to be there with Evgeny on his birthday.
Then I also something else. It was a lot of jokes. Everybody were laughing, and that tells you that he makes you to laugh with him and to makes. He's throwing the jokes and he's laughing to all of us, with us. And that shows you how humble he is, how simple he is, and how in 1 second you're not feeling just a leader of the world. You're feeling just a good friend joining the company. And that's why I wanted Colleen to share, because that's the experience that I felt from the day one when we started to meet each other.
Very few people, I think, can tell the tale of receiving a birthday cake from the Holy Father. That's an incredible story. That's fantastic. And Ambassador Bell, thank you for sharing that story. I think it's a good point. We have some questions from some other folks. So I want to first turn right now. We have a question from a current undergraduate here at Georgetown, Ana Ruiz, who's a member of the class of 2022. So Ana, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Do you have a question for Evgeny?
Yes. First of all, thank you for such an amazing and beautiful film. It really was just very emotional and brought me to tears, and just it was a great portrayal of humanity, as you said. So yeah, I wanted to ask a question about sort of the way that you decided to frame a lot of these actions of Pope Francis through a lens of like his tweets and the social media and news media reactions. And so like in your research and preparation for the film, like what did you see was the role of the social media and the news media? Like what was the role of those in Pope Francis' papacy, and why did you choose to frame all of these actions that he took through his tweets, but also the social media reactions?
First of all, I do a lot of researches, and I felt that he is one of these popes that trying to deliver the messages of gospel, his personal messages, through the Twitter, through the social media. And it also connects him to the younger generation, which is incredible thing. Remember, almost every couple of years, he, as the Pope, hosting youth days. His first was in Rio de Janeiro, and the recent one, a year ago, was in Panama. I think for him, it's very important to being connected to the younger generation, the generation that growing these days. Future leaders and just housewives, people who will be in this world, preserving this world, and making changes. And I think it's important, really important, to preserve the humanity and to spread humanity. And that's why I decided to use Twitter or some of these things as the tool to deliver his messages. Because at the end of the day, yes, I can have him speaking on a camera or behind the B-roll that I put it in the movie, and we can see his fascinating action. But I think his tweets, I found really as fascinating as the messages. And I will tell you something else. I know how the tweets happening. During the day, I'm telling you the Vatican story. During the day, his secretaries taking quotes from his speeches, from his homilies, and then showing to him, and he approving, and they posting them. So technically, it's exactly his expressions from the day that he is bringing this to the world. And that's the beauty. It's not created by the script writers or somebody who is specifically working on the speeches. No, it's his. And it's his fascinating messages. And for me, Twitter became some kind of his other voice, his voice into the social space. And also, you know what, I don't want to politicize, but I wanted to show something. It's like, specifically after 2017, we had a president who was just spreading certain hate messages and some nasty kind of bullying situations on Twitter, I wanted to show that Twitter can be also about hope, humanity, and love. And showing Pope Francis doing that was really important for me, because for me, it's a tool that also still gives you opportunity to see his voice, just in different medium. So it was an intentional thing for me, connecting him to the younger generation and to the modern technology.
Right. Thank you for that. I had no idea. And that's one of the things I've always wondered. It's like, who writes these for him? And you answered, it's coming, it's straight. And
He just picked from his stuff, yeah.
It's his voice. It's his voice. That's great. Thank you for that detail. I want to turn next to a recent alum from here at Georgetown who has a question, Mary Joy Kozak, who is a member of the class of 2019. So Mary Joy, how are you?
I'm great, Father Greg. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. The documentary was phenomenal, and Pope Francis has been such an inspiration to me and so many others. You know, Pope Francis's book, The Joy of the Gospel, was one of my favorite books, truly showing the joy of the faith and the love of Christ. Was it difficult to try to communicate this joy when discussing such serious topics, such as genocides and other humanitarian crises?
You know what I think? First of all, what is gospel? It's a good news. Something that we need to bring from the God and to bring this good news. But in our days, I think there is a difficulty to bring good news because we as humanity became sinners. And we as humanity created all these disasters. But like Holy Father said, and it's a quote that he loves, every saint have a past, every sinner have a future. So we do truly have this future. And I think also there's a quote in the Bible I used in one of my movies. And again, you hear this from the Jewish boy who's celebrating Passover. The holy is not the man who never committed any sins, but the one who knows how to seek the redemption, repent his sins. And I think it's Old Testament. So I think for us, I wanted to show opportunity that if today we will become more spiritual about our rare being, about our lives, about humanity, about all what we already sinned, admit these sinners, do confession to ourselves. You don't need to run to the church and do confession. You can confess to yourself, yes, I did this mistake. What can I do differently for tomorrow? For the safe tomorrow for our own kids, for our mankind. I think then we can create this good news, the gospel, the future. And I think that was my kind of idea of this movie, to make people who've been since last year closed in their homes, in apartments, and besides watching or reading some news about what's happening in their town, in their state, in their country maximum, they're not aware of anything. I wanted to open wide their eyes, bring everything what we as the humans created, the disasters. And then through him, summarize this and allow to understand that, yes, we still can have a future if we will admit our mistakes. That's why it was important, and I'm taking 2 steps back, admit the mistakes, what Jorge Maria Bergoglio doing even as the Pope, to be able to recognize the mistakes, our sins. And then after seeking redemption, we can build this future. We can build the good news. That's why through the entire movie, Pope Francis not looking into the camera. He's not looking at the audience. And only by the end of the movie, he looking directly into the audience and saying, hey, yes, it's a difficult times, but we still have opportunities. So now let's join me, and let's together change this world. Because we need to bring a change that will unite us all.
Right. And that's what I appreciate, you use that line, and it was in the film when Pope Francis, the line about every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. which is actually, that's Oscar Wilde. It's in
Absolutely, it's Oscar Wilde.
Lady Windermere's Fan. I'm like, I never knew Pope Francis was quoting Oscar Wilde. I thought that's fantastic. But it is that notion, as Catholics, we love our saints, and we tend to make them plaster and stained glass, and we strip the humanity from them. And saints aren't, I had a little kid once in our chapel, Dahlgren Chapel here on campus, say to me, you know, saints aren't perfect. They're just people who keep trying. And that gets to your point too, Evgeny, in terms of there's always that movement out in terms of I can be an instrument of gospel, of good news in the world and live out of that. So no, but that's fantastic. I think we have another question here from somebody from my department, from one of our campus ministry staff members, Jamie Kralevec, who is Associate Director for Mission Integration at our School for Continuing Studies. Jamie, you there?
Yes, Father Schenden. Good to be here. Evgeny, I just want to thank you for the gift of this film. In the work that I do of sharing our Catholic and Jesuit heritage in a diverse, multicultural, multi-faith context like Georgetown, this gift will be a wonderful teaching tool for that work. So thank you. I have a question about the Pope's Jesuit identity. You talked a little bit today, that quote about how I'm a Jesuit, and that means that I want to go out and help others in the world. Can you offer a few reflections about what you learned about Francis's identity as a Jesuit, and what of his actions and who he is kind of flow from that Jesuit identity?
I think we don't need to go far away. His trip to Iraq, despite danger, you're seeing a true Jesuit in the middle of pandemic, with one foot always next to the suitcase and in a plane, going directly into the war zone, trying to comfort people. I will tell you something amazing that will blow your mind. My last conversation with Holy Father when we saw each other was mid-February, and I said to him, it's pandemic. It is also dangerous situation, and you're still going. And you know what he said to me? He said, you know what, John Paul canceled his trip there. I can't betray the people. I must go. Important. And it's important for me to bring this peace. And you know what? And he did. He did it despite all the obstacles, despite all the danger. And that's the true Jesuit identity. And I will tell you, that's not only the trip. Remember Africa, when he went to Africa, to the literally middle of the world, and many other places. I think what we're seeing here, it's not a Pope who's trying to travel to the luxurious places and meet the leaders. We're seeing here an amazing Jesuit who is going into the corners of the world, exactly like Ignatius' teaching, and he is trying to be close to the people. I think that's the true identity that Pope Francis is portraying in his life and in his actions. I've been in Santa Marta in his apartment many times. You know, it's a humble, simple living. It is very simple. So again, that's the true Jesuit. And remember, what I started today in a conversation about when I approached him about the movie, his first thing, I'm not an actor. I rather go to the corners of the world to help people. That's what he's doing. He's not going after leaders just to meet leaders and live in a 4-star hotels, 5-star hotels and all these things. No, he is about simplicity and about being on the front lines, exactly like true Jesuits will do. And that's the most beautiful thing about true identity as a Jesuit for Pope Francis.
Well, you're putting the pressure on all of us now, Evgeny, by bringing up that Jesuit identity, but you're absolutely right. And I appreciate you tying it in. I mean, that goes all the way back to St. Ignatius and our founding, that, okay, Jesuits are always going to go to the margins, to the peripheries, which is a word that you hear from Pope Francis, where the needs aren't being met.
Correct. His first trip was Lampedusa.
Right.
As the Pope, first trip not to meet leaders somewhere and say, hey, I'm the world leader right now, let's all start to do something together. No, he's going to Lampedusa to initiate action that saved so many lives. And then more and more and more and more. So again, his true identity as the Jesuit is portrayed in every action he's doing. And he's not doing this from the perspective, okay, I need to be Jesuit and I need to follow. No, it's him. It's him. You know what? I specifically went into a lot of stuff from his background, from his life in Buenos Aires, just to show that many things that are coming from the streets of Buenos Aires is exactly belongs to the current Pope, because it's him. It's his true identity that not changed from being a cardinal or being a provincial or being right now a Pope. Nothing changed. He is still the same Jorge Maria Bergoglio or Father George, and he will be Father George forever. Because in our conversations, he's always saying to me, Evgeny, I'm first of all a priest. I am a priest, and I am here to serve the people.
He's a priest. Yeah, exactly. And that was also, you bring up Lampedusa, that's his first trip, but also that first in 2013, in Lent of 2013, when he made the comments, speaking of bishops, he said, shepherds should smell like their sheep.
Absolutely.
It's that same point that's running through all of this, is that, it's about not being separate from the people, but it's again, that solidarity, with the people. And that comes out very, very clearly.
Now, guess, Vatican is vaccinating 24/7. Guess whom they're vaccinating right now? Poor people, homeless people. Now, guess, Jesuit Curia and Jesuit homes in Rome, guess whom they're hosting? A lot of poor people or homeless people. Right. So that's all under Pope Francis.
Right. Yeah, remarkable. We have a question here that just came in the chat from one of our students, Sebastian Klemmer. And Sebastian asks, he brings up the opening of the film about the video of Pope Francis preparing to deliver the Urbi et Orbi. And that is striking to begin that film. And again, as we're a year out from that actual event and that anniversary. But Sebastian's question is this. He said, what made you decide to open and close the film with the COVID-19 pandemic? And he goes on to say, do you think that these images will have the same effect on viewers if they watch the film, say, 10 years in the future? So what made you decide to open and close? Because at the end, you have the footage of folks applauding, clapping, banging pots and pans. What made you decide to open and close the film with the pandemic? And do you think these images will still be just as iconic in 10 years when folks watch the film, or 20, or so on?
St. Peter's Square not exist without people. It's always full of people.
Mm-hmm.
And when Pope Francis is on St. Peter's Square, it's never been empty. It's always millions of people cheering. And here, we see a moment in history where we see the really darkest sky, clouds. We see rain, and we see somebody in white, beautiful dress, like an angel, walking through the St. Peter, and we're recognizing that it's Pope Francis, somebody who's trying to bring a light through all this darkness. And I think if after watching this scene, humans not will stop for a second and say, hey, that's a really doomsday scene. Are we true going through the doomsdays right now, which truly we experiencing, humanity experiencing since last year? And after having this scene and then going into emptiness, through the main credits, you see empty streets from across the globe. I specifically use drone from across the globe where you see this emptiness of the streets. It's just to make a point that if after all these scenes that are listed in this movie, disasters that we created, humans, we will not try to rethink everything, reevaluate our mistakes, and with the completely different approach, is kindness and love, with ability to stop the war conflicts, If we will not be able to make this happen, then what we see on an opening scene will be the reality. We will see Pope alone walking through some people. And I think that's like a cold shower for every human being when he's watching these scenes listed in this movie. I think that's what it was for me. And I truly believe that even 10 years from today, for people, it will be still something unbelievable to recognize that Pope can be alone in this darkness of doomsday going through St. Peter. That's what it was for me. And I know that many of my friends, after watching this movie, they were literally struck by this kind of momentum in history. And for them, it was truly moments that, hey, I really didn't know how much disasters we did. We definitely need to have a different approach. And that's why, for me, this scene was really a momentum in history, a building momentum for the red line that we are standing right now. And my desire to bring a clapping was ability to show that we as humans still can show gratitude to others. Because when you go into sleep, if you as a human and as the believer will show you gratitude to God for everything God given to you, if as non-believer, you will show your gratitude to universe that still gives you ability to breathe and wake up tomorrow. That's a beautiful thing. And I think as this movie progressing, we're learning that we need to be grateful for a lot of things that God, universe, creator, each of us can call it differently, gives us on a daily basis. And we need to be grateful for these things. And we need to stop destroying what is given to us. We need to be grateful and grateful and grateful. And I think that's why, for me, scenes of emptiness, and specifically in the end, we're showing this towards the contrast of his election. And it's literally, we're going from March 2013 into literally March, April 2020. And you see this emptiness, this echo on an empty square where it's only his voice that he's appealing to humanity. Hey, let's do something. Let's not allow the human race to completely disappear. That's what this emptiness and this scene means to me.
And you've said it a number of times. This notion of the disasters that we as humans have created, and you place us, in the empty St. Peter's, and I appreciate the way you just described the Holy Father walking there in all whites, like this sole angelic figure in the midst of emptiness. But Pope Francis echoed something similar in that homily when he said, and I paraphrase, but it still strikes me. And every time I see those images, I think of when he said in his homily,
it is a time.
Well, it's the other one when he says, when the whole world is sick, how can we expect not to be sick? And that just is like, oh my goodness, and it's, again, there's that clarion call to action, that comes out so clearly. And I appreciate what you just said there too, Evgeny, about gratitude, and that's so central, I think, well, with St. Ignatius. Ignatius said the root of all sinfulness is a lack of gratitude. Therefore, we might spin it positively and say, well, the root of all virtue then is gratitude. And that's so foundational to the Society of Jesus, our worldview. And it's so foundational, I think, to Pope Francis as well. I'm mindful of our time. We just have a couple minutes, and I know we have more questions. And I have a couple pages of questions that I would love to continue. Just maybe one last question, and then I want to thank some folks here. But if there were to be a director's cut of this film, is there a scene, an image, something that ended up on the cutting room floor that you're like, ooh, I would love for people to see that, and it didn't make it into this cut?
It did, but it's very short. No, it actually didn't. I will tell you what it is. In 2019, in April, inside of Santa Marta, I witnessed this. he had opposition leaders of Sudan that he hosted them for retreat week. And the last day, he said to them, I'm begging you, please stop the bloodshed. Let's have a peace. If you want to fight, fight behind the closed doors. But in front of the people, hold the hands and be the fathers of the nation. And he went on his knees. He was 83 years old. He went on his knees and he kissed their feet. 3 males and 1 female. He, Holy Father himself. And that was striking. And it was, I lost speech for a moment. It wasn't different cuts. For me, it's a fundamentals for every leadership, for every government. You guys want to fight behind your doors, but in front of the people, hold your hands and be united. It belongs to the church. It belongs to the government. It belongs to every big organization. And I think that's a fascinating message. And it's really tough to watch. Now, I will comment on another thing. We do planning next year. No, it's going to be this year, actually. And Holy Father is embracing this, to release this movie as the discussion guide for the universities, a very detailed one, and as the curriculum for the Catholic schools and for the schools. And we're working on that right now. And as the DVD and Blu-ray version that will be on March next year, it will have all the outtakes and amazing scenes that we're not seeing here. And scenes that really are life lessons. I think at least another hour of the scenes that I know as of right now, you will see there. And the parallel between him and St. Francis of Assisi and 2 popes and all kind of things. And by the way, for the first time in history, we've seen 2 popes. And for me, it was important to show Benedict as the thinking head and him as the working hands of the church, as one body of the church. And that's we see in the end of the movie, where Benedict showing his appreciation and gratitude and embracing every step that Holy Father doing. And for me, it was important to show to the world, despite the church struggles and divided, to show the unification of 2 heads, which sometimes not portrayed it in the media, but I wanted to show the reality. And for me personally, it was really important to show this unity that I just showed about leadership, unity of 2 heads that are still here, and one of them leading the institution, leading the world. And for me, it was important.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to the outtakes next year and to further conversation. We're pretty much out of time. Evgeny, thank you so much for taking this time, but also thank you, and first of all, congratulations again on the film, but thank you for the gift that Francesco, the film, is for all of us, and for the time, the efforts, all of it. It's stunning. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Ambassador Bell, thank you for being here, for sharing that fantastic story about Evgeny's birthday. That was tremendous, but for you taking the time as well with us today. I also just want to thank Campus Ministry Office and Mission and Ministry staff, Dr. Jim Wickman, John Crowley Buck, Laura Henderson, who brought all this together and all these moving pieces. Much gratitude to all of you. And many thanks to all of you who joined us for this wonderful conversation today. So again, Evgeny, many thanks. And until next time. So
thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.